How the hell is everybody?
Great.
Great. Well, I'm going to try and do a couple things today. I'm going to try and entertain you just a little bit, not that much, and I'm going to try and help you to reach a new level of happiness in about a 10-minute time period. So it's a little bit of a tall order, but I'd like you to imagine that everything you see around you started here in the mind. If you look around at this room, there's nothing that you can see that wasn't first here. Yeah? Now, it may appear nothing. It may appear like you don't hear anything, you don't see anything, but they're ideas. And in the ideas, we can have moments of stillness. In a moment of stillness is a moment of creation. And that's where things come from. Now, some people even applaud, but you don't need to. No, I don't. I actually don't. What I would like to use is this is an illustration. This is an illustration of what goes on in your mind. So anything that we do here today, obviously, I hope, you guys will not think is real magic or what have you, but it's illustrative of what goes on here. And that's why we brought the projector, and that's why we brought all these things here, part of the reason anyway, is so you can see, because these are kind of small things. These actually are a connection to the past. So, sir, what was your name? Adam. Adam, if you could observe that these are actually, and you up? Carlina. And Josephine. Would you guys take a look at those and make sure they are in fact what they appear to be, which are dollars from our past. This used to be the silver dollar. One of them is 1892. I don't know which one, but there's three of them. And I want you to imagine that these are your thoughts. Wonderful. And they are bright, shiny objects. Now, we're attracted to things when we try and empty the mind. We're always attracted to things. And that's the problem. Sometimes it's not what we should be attracted to. In fact, sometimes we're attracted to things we shouldn't be attracted to. So there's a moment of release. Just letting go of the thought. Now, when that happens, you become freer. You become lighter. That's the idea. Okay? You can do it again. Here, look, watch. Just letting go. Just releasing, and everything becomes a little lighter. That's the idea. This is a euphemism. This is a visual representation of what we're all going to do in our minds in just a second. Watch this one. You can almost hear a pin drop in this room. Watch. Now there they are. 1, 2, 3. We go like this. They always come back. It's the moments of stillness. The moments of stillness, that is what gives us a little bit of peace. So we're not going to go for a whole lot. We're just going to go for moments of stillness. So by a show of hands, who here has meditated? Lovely. Okay. And by a show of hands, who has not? Okay. All right. Any of you that have never meditated, if anybody would like to give me a reason why you wouldn't want to, I'm very open to hearing, because I believe I may even have a few thoughts of my own as to why you wouldn't. But would anybody give me a thought why you wouldn't?
I meditate in my prayers.
Okay, that's a form of meditation. Sure. Okay.
They don't know how. Never came up.
Never came up.
They don't know.
All right.
Yeah, they don't know how.
Don't know how. And does anybody have a sense that meditation might be boring or difficult? Yeah, that was my issue. So I've been looking for a way to meditate for years. And to be very honest, 5 years ago now, I went to a thing called Vipassana. I just jumped in. I was the most ADD person you could imagine. So I would be here, and then I'd be there, and my thoughts would be racing. And Vipassana is 10 days of silence, meditation for 8 hours a day. You show up, and they say, thank you for coming. There's no cost, but we'll hold your cell phone. Well, that was a shock. And then, on top of it, they want the keys to the car. And you are not allowed to talk to anybody for 10 days. You don't even make eye contact. And I jumped in, and I did go crazy on day 3. I literally heard voices. But after that, it was bliss. But that was a very difficult way to meditate. Very difficult. So, what I intend to do is discuss an easier way to meditate. A way that you guys could do it in maybe 10 minutes. So by a show of hands, who thinks that would be good?
I think meditation needs to be defined. I don't really sometimes understand fully what people intend when they say that.
Okay, that's fair. That's a very good question. And maybe meditation that we'll talk about today, we'll just talk about it as moments of stillness, just not thought. But that's an issue too. I'm gonna ask you, if you would, just close your eyes and don't think of a polar bear. Is anybody here thinking of a polar bear? Notice how the more you don't think about it, the more defined the polar bear is. You can almost see it from different angles. That's the problem with the mind. And so we're going to do something a little different. Traditional meditation, we work very hard to clear the mind, to get things out of the mind, so that there is no mind left. But that is a little bit unnatural, because that's not the state of the mind. And so I would almost like to, well, the first thing I want to do is talk about a hero of mine. His name was Lester Levinson. Lester lived in New York City in the 50s. He was 42 years old. I see a knowing nod. Somebody knows about Lester. Wonderful. And Lester, in 1952, was diagnosed in New York City with the following ailments. Imagine this was you. Depression, enlarged liver, kidney stones, spleen trouble, hyperacidity, ulcers that had perforated his stomach and formed lesions, and he was on his second coronary. All that at once. 1950 was a little bit different time, 1952, than today, and they didn't necessarily have bedside manner. So the doctor told Lester to go home and prepare to die. He had 3 months. That was it. Now, he was professionally at the pinnacle of his life. He was a physicist, a very successful entrepreneur. This man owned blocks of real estate in and around New York City. But he was going to die. And so he went to a psychiatrist who was one of the last living associates of Sigmund Freud. And they again could say things that they would not say today. And they said, there's nothing we can do for you. Just go home, get ready to die. So Lester went home and got really mad. Like boiling angry mad. And he was mad at his doctor. And he was mad at his psychiatrist. Because he figured nobody gave a shit about him. And he was probably right. Probably right. But Lester was also brilliant. And somehow, without any training in meditation, without anything else going on, he figured out that when he got angry, the people that got hurt were not the folks he was angry at. It was who? Exactly. And so, Lester simply decided in that moment to figure out how to get rid of his anger. In the process, he actually constructed every conceivable human emotion. So there were subsets of the following. Apathy. Now, does anybody here have apathy? Apparently, yeah, okay. Hector, I know Hector. Yes, Hector does have apathy. And apathy is, if I were to ask anybody right now to go to the center of feeling, which is around the belly button, is there anybody here coming up blank? They just don't seem to be feeling anything one way or the other. Anybody? By a show of hands? Okay. I see a few. Yeah. Lovely. Wonderful. I was one of those. Yes. When you don't feel anything, that is technically apathy. You're not at the most bizarre type of apathy. If apathy were heightened and heightened and heightened, it eventually would be, what's the point? Nothing matters anyway. Okay, we're not there. But the mind will actually always be feeling some form of emotion, and when it does not, it just seems like a blank sheet of paper, just whiteness, just nothing, and that is apathy. It's one of the lower emotions, and the emotions change all the time. You can go from the lowest emotion of apathy all the way up to the greatest emotion, which is peace, and you can go in a matter of seconds. So the mind and the emotions are actually an illusion. And if we can learn to let go of those emotions, you will be amazed at how happy you guys are going to get. So you just let go of emotions. So the lowest was apathy. The next is grief. And by the way, there's all these subsets. There's all these subsets underneath each of these. Then comes fear. Then comes lust. Then comes anger. And finally, pride. Those are all the lower emotions. So on the top down, pride, anger, lust, fear, grief, and the lowest is apathy. But then there's higher emotions. Courage, acceptance, and peace. And those are the ones that give you the best feeling. So, in this moment, right now, is there anybody that would like to deal with any kind of emotional issue that is bothering you? That we won't get super personal, but just an emotion that's coming up. Does anybody have one? Okay, yes.
Boredom.
Boredom. Thank you. Okay. Fair enough. So, in this moment...
Not here.
No.
That's my I feel like I'm blushing in my life.
You're just not interested in things. That is apathy. Okay. And realize that you are not alone. You're not a special snowflake. We all have this to some extent. We all have all of these things at different times. So in this moment, right now, I'd like to ask people to just briefly close their eyes and see if you can get in touch with just boredom and apathy and welcome it. Now, why would you welcome it? It's okay, because it means you're alive. If you weren't living and breathing, that wouldn't be there. So based on that it serves you in some fashion, could you welcome the apathy? And now, in your mind, I'm going to ask you to give the apathy a color. It can be any color you choose. And now try and give it a shape. Any shape at all. And now, in this moment, not forever, but just for now, I'd like you to imagine that shape beginning to dissolve just a little, maybe 1% of it. And see it as it starts to roll down the body as you relax. And it sort of goes down the arms, the legs, spiraling around the body, and eventually into the feet and onto the floor. And now ask yourself if you can tell a little more lightness than when we started. Just a little. And as that lightness comes about, begin to feel more and more of that feeling start to dissipate. By a show of hands, does anybody feel just a little lighter? Just a little. A few of you. And the rest of you that are not, can we accept that that is still there or not there? Perhaps it's another emotion, and welcome even that. Now, begin to let that get softer. And imagine a straw coming out of your forehead. And imagine that starting to dissipate the emotion as it begins to take a liquid form and just fade away. And who here can feel a little lighter now? If you feel a little lighter, raise your hand. Here we go. We all have different ways of feeling that lightness. But that lightness is an emotion. And that is what we're getting rid of. So coming back for a minute now, slowly and only as you need to, you can begin to open your eyes and look around. And perhaps things are a little sharper or a little clearer than they were, or the colors slightly brighter. That's fine too. And I want to get into a concept which is part of the tradition of meditation, which is oneness. Everything is one. So, I'm going to attempt to use a deck of cards. And Anna, you just got done meditating, right? Would you be willing to help me for a second?
Sure.
All right. So if we could all get a round of applause for Anna. She was just on, what was it, 5 days? 5 days?
4 days.
4 days. Lovely. I'm going to move this here. I'm going to have you, if you would, just have a seat right here. And what I'm going to do, Anna, and hopefully this is where the projector comes in, because I got these large cards with the large indexes, and you can see, and I'm going to tell you a little story about the ocean and the waves. So there's a little wave, and the little wave is sailing along the ocean. And it's enjoying the sun and the sand and the surf, and it sees the other waves crashing violently into the rocks, and it becomes concerned. And a bigger wave comes along and says, "Why are you so worried?" And the little wave says, "You don't understand. In a matter of minutes, we hit the rocks. That's going to be the end of us. Isn't that terrible?" And the bigger wave says, "Well, you don't understand. You're not a wave. You're part of the ocean. So, we're all something together." And in this moment, I'll go like this. Anna, I'm going to ask you to simply name one that you see as we go through. Anyone is fine. The King of Diamonds, okay? And I'm going to ask you, if you would, to personalize that. And we're going to demonstrate that everybody thinks they are a person, and they are. There's definitely no question. We're all different. But we also have something the same about us. So, if you would, sign your name right on the King of Diamonds, on the face, not on the back there, right there. And that makes the King of Diamonds different and a little bit unique. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. All right, good enough. And we'll keep the king right about where it was. Hopefully you guys can see this. Yeah? Okay, good. Now, in the tradition of meditation, we all are one. Yeah? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a card which certainly is not you, the Jack of Hearts, and I'm going to ask you to put your hand out, if you would. Okay? And can everybody see her hand as well? Good. In this moment, I'm not really going to do much of anything. I'm going to put it right here so you can see. Yeah? Okay, good. Now, is it possible in this moment that that could become your card? That everything is part of everything?
Of course it's
Show them. There we go.
Wow.
So the crazy part of this is we live on the surface. We really do. We are on the surface of everything. Underneath us is a lot. You just spent 5 days in meditation. What did you do exactly?
I was in the gratitude training.
The gratitude training. Okay.
We were part of the gratitude leadership.
Something similar.
In Spanish
Out here.
version. The Spanish
Oh, okay.
version of it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, it's a perfect segue in a way, because you did get in touch with something deeper than just the normal day-to-day. And so we live on the surface. Underneath us are many things. In fact, if you look here, you will see there's a card underneath me, and that is the Jack, which originally was your card. See, everything is surface-based. So look, if I take that card and I put it right about here, and I square it up, again, we live on the surface, see? Because really, all we have is a Jack. Everything else is beneath us. There we go. Okay. we're about to shoot for. We are now going to explore not just letting go, but actually trying to understand. So I'm going to give you an analogy, and my best analogy is, and this is a great thing to do one day. Imagine that there's two of you, because there really are two of you. One of you is a meat puppet. That's the body you live in. It's flesh. Every day when you get up, probably the first thing you do is you go eliminate that thing. It needs service. It needs to let everything out. So you do that. Then you wash it and you clean it, you drag it around, and then that thing goes out and you rent it out for money so that it can earn some food and some shelter. And then it starts over the next day. That's your body. On the other hand, there's something living inside the meat puppet, and that is the soul. And the soul is part of everything. I'm not getting religious, I'm not a Buddhist or anything of that sort, but there literally is something which is bigger than the flesh. And that's what we're going to get to. So, let's just do this. We live in a day and age of tremendous stress. All of us have stress. There's a lot of stress. Would everybody kind of agree with that?
Yeah.
All right. And actually, one of the things that was not present even 10 years ago was the fact that we're becoming more and more divided over things like politics. Okay? And I could go around the room, we won't. This is not a thing like that. But all of us have very different opinions, even if we think we don't. There's some things we like, we don't like, we're this, we're that. But we're starting to tear apart our friendships, our family bonds, even our marriages are starting to get this tension. And there's no need for it. Because if we could just let go of that and embrace the fact that on some level we're all part of the same thing, you'd find this. You'd find it to be like a computer. Who here has recently had their phone or their computer freeze up on them by a show of hands? Okay. Yeah, okay, quite a fair number of people. And the rest of you certainly have at some point or another.
Right.
Now, what do you do to solve a computer that's frozen most of the time?
Turn it off.
Turn it off.
That's right, that's right. And the mind is actually a giant supercomputer. So that is what this is about. We need moments of stillness, and when we get those, then we get flooded with happiness. So what Lester figured out, and this is the genius of this man, is it doesn't matter what you're feeling. Imagine you just won the lottery. It's the biggest lottery in history. You're now a multi-billionaire with a B. How good would that feel?
Amazing.
Who would embrace letting that good feeling go? Anybody? Anybody want to, real eager to just let that much happiness go? No. But, here's the crazy part. To be really happy, you got to. Because if you don't, here's what you're saying. Happiness is rare for me. And so, if I'm finally happy, I ain't letting that go, because that's very strange. I'm not happy very often. I have to keep all the happiness, or else there won't be any. So, what Lester figured out is it doesn't matter if you are happy or sad or anywhere in between. It's an illusion. You let it go, you reboot the computer, and you start to feel better. And it doesn't just work some of the time. It works most of the time. In fact, it will eventually work all the time. Sometimes you just get stuck. So, let us try. Is there anybody here that would like to work on an issue? Because sometimes that's the best way to do it. Is there anybody that has an issue they'd like to work on? It can just be an emotion. We don't have to delve into your personal life, but it's by show of hands. Wonderful, sir. What's your name?
Kenneth.
Kenneth. Okay, the doctor's in.
Why
Come
you
on.
sit up there?
Yeah, would you mind? Nope. All right. Okay. So, Kenneth, and believe me, whatever you're feeling, somebody else in this room is feeling the
Oh, I
exact
know
same
they are.
thing. Yeah. So what is the thing that you would like to release on right now?
Frustration.
Frustration.
Which is a brother of anger.
Mhm. Okay, so it's got its roots in anger and a bit of frustration. Without getting personal, can you paint us a picture of it?
Yeah, the picture that I will paint is trying to work with someone on something that you just can't agree on, and you believe that you've made like all the appropriate steps to move towards that person, and feel misunderstood and a lot of disagreement there. So yeah, just an inability to communicate.
Sounds like frustration.
Like
Almost, it is sort of anger. I can see a little anger. Okay. All right. So, in this moment, if you would just let your body relax, and most emotion, there's a center of emotion near the belly button, and if you would just feel in that area that emotion, and now, could you, just for now, not forever, welcome that emotion? Because it does mean that you're motivated in some sense. It means you're alive. So could you welcome that? And now, in your mind, can you picture this level of frustration or anger, and imagine yourself hugging that, welcoming it and hugging it.
And laughing with it.
See it? Because give it a voice like Mickey Mouse. As you hug it, hear it saying,
It doesn't have a voice like me.
you are now lighter.
Yeah, but I mean, I laugh about it all the time because it's one of those insolvable things.
Okay, fair enough.
So it's,
And
I just continue to go back to it. I laugh about it because it's so ridiculous.
Can you welcome any sense that this is personal or about you or who you are?
It's not.
Perfect. Can you welcome that?
Yes.
And then, in this moment, the idea that it is not about you, now that you've welcomed that, can you feel that begin to dissipate and take with it some of the anger, some of the frustration? And can you imagine it getting just a little blurry? Give it a color. What color is that anger or frustration?
Yellow.
And see that yellow beginning to run down your body and into the legs and around the feet, spiraling around. And then imagine it getting just a little lighter as it continues to dissipate. Just a little. Maybe 1%.
I can imagine that.
Can you actually in this moment embrace the idea that this is something that needs to be figured out now?
Yes.
Wonderful. And in this moment, and not forever, but just for now, can you actually imagine this being almost stuck to you, like a monkey on your back? Can you accept the fact that this is part of you?
It is right now.
Good. So you can accept that.
I've chosen to live with it.
Yeah. And now, not forever, but just in this moment, can you imagine, I'm going to go with a very small, let's say 1/2 of 1%, but visualize that. And now begin to feel that as it slowly begins to dissolve, as it slowly begins to fade away.
Maybe loosen its grip
Yeah,
rather than fade away.
it's loosening its grip on your mind. And feel that looseness, almost like a noose that is slightly loosened. There we go.
That's what it is. But
There you go. No, I can see. Okay, now if you look at his body, he's a little bit lighter. He may not feel it that much, but you are just a little bit, there was a moment of release.
Okay.
And this is something that is compounded over time, by the way. It is not something that happens necessarily expertly today or tomorrow, but it is something that if you welcome any emotion, and then you can give yourself whatever visual you need to let go, it'll get better. Let's give him a round of applause. So this is the technique. Now, all of us probably are feeling different emotions at this moment. So what I'm going to ask you to do, and this is where oneness comes in, I'm going to ask you all to close your eyes just for a moment, not forever, just now. And now I want you to imagine whatever you're thinking now. And as you start to get in touch with any particular emotion, I want you to signify that emotion in your mind. And we're going to try a little experiment. I want everybody at the same moment to do a couple ohms with me. Everybody's familiar with Om. It's the sound most people make when they meditate. It is Om. And in this moment, let's all do together 1 or 2 ohms. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Om. One more. Now, I'm going to ask everybody to take either their right or their left hand, whichever you are, the opposite hand. If you're right-handed, use your left. And I want you to feel on your neck your pulse. And now, let's do this. Using the opposite hand, would you tap out your pulse on your leg? Everybody together, please. Notice, we're starting to sync. Some of us are not, but a lot of us are. And what that means is there is an element of oneness. We are actually in the same situation on one level. We're all driving around different meat puddles, but we're all together in one sense. And so, again, close your eyes. And is there anybody here that does not have an emotion right now in mind? Just by... Okay, so we all have something. And now, I want you to ask yourself, as you close your eyes and look at this, who is looking at this emotion right now? Who is observing? And I'm going to put forth that the observer has always been there. And it's still there, observing. And try and answer that question. And is there anybody here that could give me an answer as to who is watching their emotion right now?
I said God.
God. Okay.
Yes.
Lovely. That's a good answer. And if we welcome the concept of God, in the Hebrew Bible they said you cannot even describe God. But if we ask past God, who is the creator of God? Or what is the creator of God? Is there an answer? Love. And if we could go a little deeper than love, what would be the source of love? Energy. And if it were possible to go deeper than energy, if that were possible, to go a layer lower, what would we find?
Us.
What is us?
Life.
And what is deeper than life? Thank you. We have a winner. There is no answer to this. So, the consciousness, which is observing everything, right now, in this moment, really, we can't define the source, but we're all connected to it. And just like the waves that are hitting the rocks on the ocean, we're all part of it. And that knowingness, which is there, which is the observer, was there before you were born. It'll continue to be there. It doesn't end. It's not something we can define. It's not something that we can control. But it absolutely is. So now, let's go back to the emotion. And let's ask this. From the perspective of the observer, which is something that we cannot define, can the observer divorce itself from the notion that it has anything to do with that emotion that you're feeling? Could the observer just let go of that feeling or that emotion? Just for now, not forever. Can that observer just let go? And as it begins to let go of something that it isn't to begin with, notice that that which is you feels a little bit lighter than when we started. And this is incremental. But that just happened in about 4 or 5 minutes. There's nothing personal, absolutely nothing personal about the fact that you are feeling these emotions. It does not define you, it does not define who you are. Isn't that interesting? So, in traditional meditation, we spend hours trying to quiet the mind. It's just like trying not to think about that white polar bear. And that's why meditation traditionally is so tough. Because the mind needs something to chew on. Our minds are constantly chewing. They're always hungry. They're never not fed. There's never a point, even in your dreams, that sucker is working. But if you focus on what it's doing, which is really nothing more than your emotion, and you're able to welcome it, and if you can't welcome it, you can accept it, and then just let a little of it go, you're basically rebooting your computer. You are now taking that thing and turning it off when you just release the emotion, which we are so attached to. Does anybody have any questions about any of this? Anybody want to ask a question or think that this might not work for them for some reason? Yes?
So when you were saying about the conscious observer, being able to let go, I don't know if anyone else felt this, but it was easy to imagine the conscious observer letting it go, but I still felt like a physical something in my body, like a sensation, yeah. So I wonder, and then I was thinking, is there a process of like transferring that?
Well, that's good. You were supposed to feel that. Was the physical sensation lighter or heavier?
No, it was just like that anxiety feeling there, just that sits there.
Okay. What? Yes, of course. It isn't special to you. Yes, it's not special to you. And you can welcome that. And even the desire to figure it out, you can welcome that. You can welcome the idea that you need to understand it. Because the mind always needs to understand it. The emotions are something else again. And I would actually like to give you guys a visual to remember this. Now, if I do this, you won't be able to ever unsee this again. So, it is something that is memorable, and it is kind of an illusion, but I could do that. Would you be willing to try that with me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm right over here. All right. So this is going to be a little strange. I'm going to ask, these are my tools. By the way, if you would, just mix them up a little bit. And I should explain, in the flyer it said that I'm a performing member of the Magic Castle, which is known as the Academy of Magical Arts and Sciences in Los Angeles. And it also said, and this is not quite true, but it said that magicians meditate, and they don't. As a matter of fact, magicians are among the most skeptical, very physical people in the world because we delve in tricks. But the idea here is to show you guys that there is actually a marriage between the mind and illusion and what actually goes on in the mind, because emotions are an illusion. And you get filled with higher emotions whenever you let go. So it was nice that you were able to feel that physicality, that sort of release in that moment. Okay? That was a great thing. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do, you're putting your own personal footprint on these, and I hope the camera can catch this. There's no rhyme or reason now. You see that? These are all different now. Can the camera see that? This is her pattern. This is your pattern of cards, yeah? Okay. Now, here's what I'm going to have you do. If I were to ask you to identify with some sort of playing card, and I just name a card real fast.
Ace.
Okay, see, she doesn't have like you don't have an emotional commitment to an ace. Okay, there isn't, she's not a card player, there's not, no. My point is, and maybe you can see it better this way. Can you see the cards here? Everybody see that? I'm going to ask you to use what you have, which is your unconscious, to simply cut the cards. Now look, you can cut them anywhere. See, look at my hands here. You can cut here, you can cut there. I don't want to influence, okay? Anywhere you'd like, yeah. Now, are you sure? If you don't like it, put it back. Put it back. Actually, just cut.
That was good.
Cut anywhere. And in fact, don't look. Okay? Well, you look, but that's all right. It's all right.
Don't look at it.
But you know what? We'll use where you were. We'll
Okay.
use where you were.
Okay.
And I want you to put it against your heart. Cover it against your heart. Okay? Now, let me also point out, hopefully you can see this, that this was a free choice of cards. It's rather random. First she shuffled, and then she cut. Okay? And so this is pure intuition. This gets into the idea of the unconscious mind. What you're about to see, you will never be able to unsee again. Okay? But it's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, here's what you're going to do. I want you to show the camera. In fact, I can see this too. Whatever card you cut to, because this is going to represent you. So show it to the camera and me and everybody else here. What did you get?
It's got to be an ace card. No.
Queen of Hearts. Okay,
Queen
so
for
it's
the
very,
king.
It's very random. Yeah, the Queen for the king. The Queen for the king. Now,
He's in luck.
let's look at it. Let's analyze it. Let's transfer your emotional state onto this card. Okay? And it has two faces. Can the camera see this? There we go. There's a happier face and a sadder face. Okay? All right. Hold it again against your heart. And what emotion are you feeling in this moment?
Joy. This is fun.
This is fun.
Yeah.
Welcome to joy. Put it all into the card, though. Imagine your heart opening. Imagine joy jumping out into this card. This is crazy. Okay? Now, may I have this? And I'm going to put it against my heart. And if you look closely, put your hand against it, please. You will actually begin to feel, as the joyful feeling dissipates just a little. One more time, put it against your heart. Okay? Everything you have, transfer to this card. Fair enough. Okay? Now, if you would, hand it back. Whoops. Okay. And this card, I'm going to ask you a question, an emotional question. There's two faces. When you were growing up, who did you feel, not who did you love more, but who did you crave attention from more, mother or father? You are a daddy's girl. Am I right? Put your hand against this again. One more time. And imagine that need for love and attention dissipating. You'll never unsee this again. Just imagine it begin to dissolve. And as it dissolves, that need for attention becomes lighter and lighter. Now imagine, look carefully at your hand, directly at it, and notice that it actually physically dissipates and begins to dissolve. Notice that. Notice further, come in for a tight shot here, because notice there's absolutely nothing left, but you've left a mark. Look.
What?
It is easy to release. It's easy to release. Thank you so much. Let's give her a big hand. She put a